Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's bike mechanic video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to remove the chainring on your bike. Now, the bike you see here, of course, is my Winspace T1500 aero frame set. And as you can see, the chainrings on here currently are from Shimano. It's Shimano's Ultegra R8000 chainrings. And we're going to be swapping those out in favor of this awesome looking absolute black 53 tooth chainring you see here, so stay tuned. Oh, and by the way, if you are new to my channel, my name is Patrick Lino and I am a cyclist here in Chicago who does bike builds, I do bike reviews, and I absolutely love long walks on the beach with your mother. I'm just kidding, I prefer parks. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, I had mentioned in my Winspace T1500 build video that my original plan was to use this absolute black 53 tooth chainring. However, I was missing the bolt covers that would allow me to properly fasten the chainring bolts to the chainring. So now that those bolt covers have finally come in the mail, we can begin the process of swapping out the chainring. Now, swapping out the chainrings is pretty straightforward. You just need a few tools. One, you will need a 8mm Allen key to remove the crankset. You will need a Torx T30 tool to remove and replace the chainring bolts. You will need a torque wrench, of course, in order to properly torque down the crankset after we're finished. And of course, we will need our bolt covers, our bolts, as well as our chainring. So let's get started. Now, the reason why we're doing all this now in the wintertime is because we are getting closer to warm weather here in Chicago. And so I want to make sure that my bike is ready to go when that first warm day hits here in Chicago so that I don't have to spend that nice day tinkering with my bike. I want to make sure everything is already ready to go. I know you guys have been asking me for the last month to do a long-term review on this bike, but it's just been cold here and it's been snowy. So I will have a long-term review on my Winspace T1500 bike very soon once the weather is warm here for good. The other thing I want to mention too is, as you can see, the bike is currently suspended on the bike stand. Now, I'm not going to remove the crankset on that. It's too dangerous in my opinion to do so. I don't want to crack anything. I don't want to break anything. So I'm going to remove the crankset offline and I'll be back in a second to show you what that looks like. So we've already removed our chain, so we're ready to go. Let's continue. Oh, now I also forgot to mention that the reason why I am using an 8mm Allen key to remove the crankset on my bike is because I am running a Dub BB86 ceramic bottom bracket, as well as this Cork D4 crank-based power meter with these carbon crank arms, as you can see here. So the process for removing this chainring requires this 8mm Allen key. Now, of course, the process is going to vary depending on the bike, the bottom bracket, or even the crank arms that you're using. I know the process for removing a standard Shimano crankset is a little bit different than this one. So make sure to just double check the instructions so that you can properly remove the crankset on your bike. So let's continue. Alrighty, so to remove the crankset, we need to first unfasten this main bolt here in a counterclockwise direction. Now, for you Brits out there, what do you guys say? Anti-clockwise? Is that what you guys say? I don't know. But yeah, give ourselves a little bit of leverage here. And there we go, just like that. Now, that was actually pretty easy to unfasten, which probably tells me that I didn't torque this down to the proper spec the first time that I torqued this up. And there we go. Got the spacer in there as well. Now, the ceramic bottom bracket that I'm using is courtesy of Kogel Bearings. I really like what they do. I have this same bottom bracket on my LA Sprint and I love it. And so I'm going to continue to use it on my Winspace. So let's continue. Alrighty, so now that our crankset is removed, we can go ahead and unfasten these chainring bolts so that we can put on our new absolute black chainring here. Now, a little bit of warning here. Now, the bolts here are a Torx T30 style bolts. And I just want to let you know that a lot of Allen keys out there, or even torque keys as well, they don't typically come with a T30 tool as standard. And I learned this out the hard way because I was trying to remove some previous bolts with a T25 Torx wrench, and I almost stripped out some of these bolts. So don't do what I did. Just know that if you're working with Shimano bolts or even Shimano style bolts, that they typically use a T30 Torx wrench in order to remove these bolts. So we're basically just going to remove all these bolts, and then once we do that, we can go ahead and swap in our chainring. Let's continue. Alrighty, so we can go ahead and remove our crankset here. Do that like that. Put that over there like so. Now we can pop the new one in there. Alrighty. Now we need to pay attention to the orientation of the chain rings with the crank arms so that everything will be able to fasten correctly here. Is that correctly? Alrighty, so that's not the right way. Alrighty, so that is the proper way. Alrighty, so next we can go ahead and reinstall our bolts, our small chain ring, as well as our bolt covers. Alrighty, now it's probably kind of hard to tell here, but these are the bolt covers that I was telling you guys about earlier. I didn't have these before when I first did my initial Winspace build, and I needed these in order to fasten these bolts to the chain ring. So I've already put two in place here, and then all you do is you put the other one in here like so. And then this is the final one. Now this one is a specific size to fit this one right here. That just kind of, all right, you can do it. Oh my gosh, never done this before apparently. Just did this 2 seconds ago. Ah, there we go. All right, and so that's how it looks on this side. And so it gives it a really clean look. Plus the color of the chain ring sort of matches a little bit better with the crank arm bolts versus the Ultegra chain ring. And then now that we have the cover in place, we can go ahead and fasten our bolts to the back side of the chain ring. So let's continue. Alrighty, so we have the new bolts loosely mounted in place. I have to say it is kind of mildly annoying and cumbersome because in order to fasten the bolts properly, you do have to kind of hold each bolt cover in place in order to make sure that the holes line up when you are putting in the bolts. But right now, everything is really loosely installed right now. So the next thing we have to do is to properly torque down these bolts to the recommended spec. It is also recommended that you fasten these bolts in a crisscross pattern in order that you get proper torque around the crankset. And once we've done that, we can go ahead and then put the crankset back on the frame. So let's continue. Alrighty, so now that our chainring bolts have been properly fastened, we can go ahead and reinstall our crankset to our frame. So the process is basically we're just doing everything in reverse. And I have to say that with the dub standard of bottom brackets and cranks, it's pretty straightforward to do. Basically, you just line up the crankset with the through axle here, and we can go ahead and fasten that up. Make sure you get good leverage. Now, Cork/SRAM, they recommend a torque setting of around 54 Newton meters. I typically run mine around 40 to 45, but just make sure it's nice and snug so that there isn't anything loose, you don't have any sort of play, and that everything can spin freely. And there we go. All right, let's give it a quick spin. Sheesh. Looking good, looking good. Alrighty guys, so that is going to wrap up today's video. I just want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Evo for sending me out this absolute black 53 tooth chain ring. I think it looks amazing and it looks a lot better than the standard Shimano chain rings. But yeah, look out very soon as I will finally have a review on this Winspace T1500 Aero frame set. Thank you for your patience. I'm just waiting for the weather to be a lot warmer than it currently is. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I will check you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace. Let me just, ooh, that looks good. Oh shoot, I almost hit myself on my dang lip. Ugh.